What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. This offseason, I want to continue to bring you guys the Pittsburgh Steelers positional breakdowns and looking at the Steelers roster and some of the important positions and players on this roster after the draft and free agency is over. I've already done the running back room now, so if you guys want to hear my breakdowns on who's on the bubble in the running back room and which kind of undrafted free agents might come in and take their spots or who's fighting for those backup spots behind Najee Harris, I've got a full positional breakdown with stats and ideas on my channel. It is the last video I posted on this channel, so if you want to hear about the running back room, check that out. But today, I wanted to bring you guys probably the most interesting and most divisive and most up in the air position group of the entire Pittsburgh Steelers roster this coming season, and that is wide receiver. Man, there's been a lot of talk in the last 2 years, right? Since Antonio Brown left, there's been so much talk of, can the Steelers do this without Brown? You know, can the Steelers wide receivers get open? Can they get separation? Can they run routes? Is there a dominant receiver on this team? Is there a wide receiver one? Since Brown left, we have not had very good results at wide receiver. We've seen a lot of, positive plays and upturn and stuff like that, but we've also seen a lot of guys being unable to get open. 2 years ago when Ben got hurt, we didn't see a lot of good play out of the wide receivers. And this past season with Ben being back, we saw a much older version of Ben trying to throw the ball down the field, and it didn't really work out very well for our offense, which became very one-dimensional and boring. And now, is that on Ben's age? Is that on the play calling? Is that on the wide receivers? I think it's partially on all of those things. But the wide receivers have come into a lot of scrutiny since AB left, because we were looking at Juju as being a number one guy. What exactly can Deontay do? Bringing in Claypool. And we decided in this offseason, this is not your granddaddy Steelers. This is a new era and a new team. We have Canada now clearly calling the plays. We have Trubisky and Pickett coming in at quarterback, playing for that spot. Mobile quarterbacks, fairly young. It's a very interesting time right now, and wide receiver got a complete makeover this offseason. The Steelers were not messing around this offseason. Juju Smith-Schuster, gone. Ray McLeod, gone. James Washington, gone. George Pickens, drafted. Calvin Austin, drafted. Miles Boykin, brought over. Anthony Miller, called up. We had a big turnover in wide receivers. 3 guys gone and 3 to 4 new guys brought in. It is a very interesting time at wide receiver. And so let's take a look at each guy on the roster and kind of where they fall and what they could possibly do this season under Trubisky or Pickett. Number one is, again, a very divisive guy. High ceiling, low floor. Big ups and big downs. Deontay Johnson. We've talked about Deontay. He has the talent and ability to be as good as Antonio Brown, in my opinion. This guy is the best route runner we have. He's an underrated route runner as far as the entire league goes. He's one of the faster guys in the entire league. His footwork is really good. He gets separation, unlike a lot of the other guys. And there's times that his hands look really good. And there's times that his hands look like among the worst in the league. Let's take a look at those stats in the last 3 seasons. He's played for us for 3 years now. In 2019, got 59 catches, 680 yards, and 5 touchdowns. In 2020, he had 88 catches, 923 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And then this past season, he had 107 catches, 1,161 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That is not only exponentially growing in every category every season. We're seeing growth consistently. But also with 107 catches, he was in the top 10 this year in catches. And 1,161 yards is in top 10 in yards. Top 5 in catches, top 10 in yards. So really good stats out of Deontay this year. What alarms us is the drops. In 2020, he led the league with 13 drops. I think in the regular season, plus I think 1 in the playoffs as well. I'm trying to think back. But 13 drops in 2020, leading the league. And then he's listed here at 5 drops in 2021. I had a few more. I thought he had about 7 or 8. But it was listed as 5. But the alarming thing is through the first half of the season, and probably even a little beyond the first half of the season last year, he only had 1 drop. So he only had 5 drops last year with more targets, but 4 of those drops came in the second half of the season. So he was getting in his head again. He was making some tremendous catches in the first half of the season. Corner catches, back of the end zone catches, big coverage catches. And then in the second half, he was dropping a lot of balls, including dropping some big balls in the playoffs against the Chiefs last year. So we saw Deontay get back in his head. Now, again, we're seeing growth in the stats every year. But we're also seeing that he wants, after this season, the talk was that he wanted $15 million a year in his contract extension for the Steelers. So this could very well be his last year in Pittsburgh. Now, he's shown flashes of brilliance. Again, high ceiling. This guy could be an elite top 5 receiver in the entire NFL, in my opinion. But his lows, his drops are not just drops. They are playoff drops. They're end zone drops. They're third down conversion drops. And once he gets them in bunches. He's a streaky player. If he's catching balls, he's catching everything. If he's dropping balls and he's in his head, he can't catch a damn thing. So, is Deontay Johnson currently worth $15 million? I don't think so. Not based on this, not based on the drops. But could he be worth that much money if he has an elite season this year? Maybe, yeah. But Pittsburgh is playing the insurance. Pittsburgh has brought guys in free agency. Pittsburgh drafted 2 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds this year. With them drafting Pickens in the 2nd and Calvin Austin in the 4th, they're not playing around. If Deontay doesn't play well this season, he's going to find himself gone, and he could find himself on the bench. We drafted 2 guys in the first 4 rounds, plus brought in Boykin because they want insurance. They want to know that this year and beyond is covered. So we have bodies, we have guys that are young and hungry and can play if Deontay doesn't want to come back next year. They are playing as if he's not going to come back. He might, but right now, he's not proven anything yet as far as the amount of money that he wants, and we have guys waiting in the wings. Number 2 wide receiver, another very controversial guy with a high ceiling and a low floor. Chase Claypool has played for us for 2 seasons. 2020, he had 62 catches, 873 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And then this past season, 2021, he went way down in all those stats. 59 catches, 860 yards, and just 2 touchdowns. So not way down, but he did go down in all 3 categories. 3 less catches, 13 less yards, and 7 less touchdowns. So we do not see the progression from him that we've seen from Deontay over the years. Claypool, again, strong guy, fast guy, gets good separation on the one-on-ones and makes good combat catches, but he's not learning to run routes. He's not getting separation on anything besides just straight down the sidelines. When Bed was throwing the ball up down the sidelines, Claypool would catch more than he wouldn't. He was a good option for that. But his 2 biggest things were he catches the one-on-one ball down the sidelines and he catches the ball in the end zone. He was way down this year in touchdowns, and he just wasn't as effective around the field. Now, he needs to get better at running routes. He needs to get better at separation and footwork on routes that aren't just streaks, and he needs to become more adept at a more versatile game that he has not. He also, in spite of his play falling down, he showed a bit of immaturity this year. We heard Claypool talk about the fact that he wants music in practice, and that was a distraction for a week or 2, and Tomlin said no more music. And then we had the whole thing where he caught the ball in the 4th quarter when the clock was running and Pittsburgh was down, and he got up and celebrated instead of getting back on the line of scrimmage. That's inexperience. That's inexcusable in the 4th quarter of games you're trying to win. So we've seen some immaturity on and off the field from Claypool, in addition to the fact that he went down in stats and he hasn't learned to grow as a route runner and a playbook learner. So that concerns me. Again, he's got the size and the speed, and the strength and the speed. You can see him get separation on those streak plays. So he's got a high ceiling, but he has not reached it yet. There are guys on this roster this year now with the draft picks that could put Claypool behind the number 2 spot. Those are your 1 and 2s right now, but if these 2 rookies come in and set the world on fire, especially Pickens being a 2nd-round pick, Claypool could see himself back in the slot and off the field a bit this season if he doesn't get better. Let's look at the 2 other veterans that I have stats for from the NFL first, and then we'll go to the rookies. Miles Boykin. Pittsburgh signed Miles Boykin from Baltimore. He played for the Ravens for 3 seasons, did not produce a whole lot, but the Ravens don't really produce with wide receivers very much. The Ravens are not a wide receiver passing football team. They're a running team that has multiple good running backs and a running quarterback. They're an athletic running team. They're not a big wide receiver team. So Boykin being drafted, he's another guy. Got some speed for a guy his size. Has a lot of height. I think he's like 6'4". Really good jumping trajectory. He high points the ball. So he's got the physical tools. He didn't produce in the NFL, but he wasn't in a good system. So we're getting a young guy who's fast, who's strong, who's tall, and who could, see an uptick with playing with this system. His stats in the NFL, 2019, 13 catches, 198 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 2020, 19 catches, 266 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And then last year, just 1 catch for 6 yards in 8 games. So not very pleasing numbers, especially in the last season. But again, he wasn't in a good system for himself and he wasn't getting used. He was a fairly high draft pick, and he, again, based on his attributes, his physicality, he could be something here. He's an outside receiver. He's someone that's going to play in the Deontay and Claypool spots on the outside, possibly as the number 3 or 4 outside guy, probably the number 4 outside guy. So we'll see. He's an untapped guy who's young and hasn't been around for a while, but we haven't seen much out of, good or bad. So we'll see what happens there. But that's very interesting. Another guy that's very interesting is Anthony Miller. People look at him as going, he's a practice squad guy because he played for 2 teams last year and he was on our practice squad. But I like what Anthony Miller did in the 3 seasons before that. He's been in the NFL 4 years. His first 3 years, check this out. 2018, 33 catches, 423 yards, 7 touchdowns. 2019, 52 catches, 656 yards, 2 touchdowns. And 2020, 49 catches, 485 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those are all with Chicago under Mitch Trubisky. He played the 3 years Trubisky played in Trubisky's best time in the NFL. So now he's playing with our quarterback. Trubisky is playing for the starting spot this year along with Pickett. And I think he's going to get the start overall, in my opinion. But yes, he is. Anthony Miller is a Trubisky guy. And in Chicago in those 3 seasons, he had over 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's pretty good business for a guy who was like the 3rd receiver for them. I like Miller a lot. He's fast. He's a good slot guy, and he can move after the ball. He can make guys miss in the open field, and he can move after catching the ball. He's fast with the ball in his hands. I like Miller a lot. And granted, last year he played for Pittsburgh and Houston. I think he had 1 catch for Houston and then didn't really play for us. I think he had 1 target for us at the end of the season last year. That was about it. Played in our practice squad for a while. But again, this guy's got multiple successful NFL seasons. He's got experience, and his success came under the time when his quarterback was the guy we have now. So I think Miller could be a really interesting slot option. Then you have Gunnar Olszewski. He played 3 years for the Patriots. I think he only has 9 catches in those 3 seasons. He's not a NFL wide receiving guy. I think he has 9 catches for like 50 yards. He's not very effective as a wide receiver, but he was one of the better return men in the NFL. I think he was a Pro Bowler in 2020. I think he was a Pro Bowl returner in one of those seasons. So you got those 4 guys, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Those 5 guys. Then you have our 2 wide receivers in the draft. George Pickens out of Georgia, Carl Pickens' son. Excellent hands, big body, fast for a guy his size. He's very much an upgraded version of Claypool at his lowest. I like what he brings to the table. Physical gifts. He's, again, very, very fast for a guy that's long and lanky. He's got a lot of strength. He high points the ball. He's dangerous one-on-one. Pickens is a freakish athlete with very good hands in traffic. I like what he does. He finds the ball. He finds the open seam. I'm a fan of this guy. The problem is he was injured. Didn't play much at all last year, but the games that he played in, especially his biggest games in college, were the bowl games, were the playoff games. He played big against big teams. Teams like Alabama, teams like Clemson. We saw him get off and do his thing on those teams. He's got the pedigree, he's got the physical attributes, and he's got the big game mentality. He could be outside or inside, but I think he's going to be an outside receiver. I think he's going to battle Claypool for that 2 spot, and at the very least be the 3rd outside receiver, the number 3 on this team. Maybe, again, in a perfect world, if Claypool progresses as well, we can have Deontay, the speedster, and then Pickens, the big body, on the outside, and then Claypool can go back to the inside where I think he's at his best, and you get your 3 best physical athletes on the field there. Speaking of physical athletes, a 4th-round steal, one of the best 4th-round picks and one of the bigger steals in this draft for me is Calvin Austin from Memphis. This guy fits the Matt Canada offense. He's a speedster. He's one of the fastest receivers in the draft. Maybe one of the fastest players in the draft overall. This guy's a freak. This guy is strong for a guy his size. Undersized, right? But strong for a guy his size. Can catch the ball in traffic. Really good at high pointing the ball and getting those tough overhead catches. Very good at ball location. He finds the ball wherever it is on the field. He's very good at cutbacks. His footwork is among the best in the draft, in my opinion. He's incredibly fast. He can also do stuff out of the backfield. He can do swing passes. He's passed the ball before out of trick play situations. He's done jet sweeps with success. So he can very much do kind of what Claypool's done with the jet sweeps and kind of the short slants. He has got a lot of ability out there. He's a game breaker. He's a freakish athlete who can do the Matt Canada style very well. So now that's, 7 guys. At the very most, we're going to keep 6, right? Pittsburgh never really keeps more than 6. 6 is our max. 5 is kind of where we've been sitting for a couple of years. But we got 7 guys. So who gets left out here, right? You look at this team and you go, okay, Deontay's going to make it. Claypool's going to make it. Pickens is going to make it. Austin's going to make it. Those 4 are guarantees. Calvin Austin, though, also is a return man. So that, I think, leaves Gunnar Olszewski out in the cold. Miles Boykin makes sense because he's an outside guy and we have a lot of other inside guys. So Boykin, I think, makes it at 5. So then you look at Gunnar Olszewski, Anthony Miller, and Calvin Austin. They would all be small slot speed guys who do returns and slot plays. Who fits that best? I think Calvin Austin. He's young, he's fast, he's hungry, and he's done that style in college. He suits what Canada wants to do as a runner and a receiver, and he can return. Gunnar Olszewski is only a return guy, and he's been around for a while. He's not effective in the offensive scheme. And Anthony Miller, while really good, is not a great return guy. He's a better receiver, and he didn't really play last year. So you got a guy like Calvin Austin, who I think is a guarantee, and he can do the things that Olszewski can do. So if we're looking at him being a 6, if we're looking at getting a 6 receiver, I think Olszewski's out and Anthony Miller would be in. But again, we'll have to see in preseason what happens. I think regardless, we're looking at Deontay and Claypool as your starters. Pickens is your 3 battling for the 2. Calvin Austin getting in there in the swing offense and doing some of the Matt Canada stuff plus returning. And then Miles Boykin being your backup outside guy in case of injury. Other guys on the roster, we have Steven Sims, who played for the Redskins/Commodores in the past. He's a practice squad guy. Cody White, who's played a little bit of injury time. He's a good fill-in for injury, but he's not an NFL starter, in my opinion. Cody White goes to the practice squad. And a couple other guys there that we just signed to be camp bodies. So I think we're looking at that. I think Deontay with his drops is under the microscope. I think Claypool with his attitude and his diversity or lack of diversity so far is under the microscope. And it's going to be very fun to see how 2 separate guys, Pickens, who's your big standard receiver with lineage and tools, and Calvin Austin, who's your speedy Matt Canada guy, how these 2 can make the offense more diverse and fit in. Can Pickens take Claypool's spot outside? Can Calvin Austin bump Claypool down further? Does Deontay start dropping balls and getting a big head? Is he in his last season here? Could he get re-signed? What are we going to do with these rookies? It all comes down to wait and see with these rookies, especially also looking at with Anthony Miller, who hasn't played in a year but has had success in the NFL, and Miles Boykin, who's got physical tools, who hasn't done much in the NFL. These 2 guys, they're X factors. What do they mean to the team? Could they make the team as a 5 or 6 receiver? Could they be a good preseason body that plays well in the preseason and fights their way onto the team? So we've got a lot of kind of underrated, unknown pieces that we're not sure what they can really do, and we're going to find out soon. What do you guys think? Who are your dark horses? Who are the starting 3 guys next year? If you look at 2 outside guys and 1 inside guy, who's starting? What do you think about Claypool and Deontay? Are we going to get Deontay back this year? Tell me in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And again, if you guys want to see my draft results videos and my running back video, there they are. Please comment on this one and share it as well so I keep doing these positional deep dives. And if you want more, please tell me in the comments. I will see you guys soon.